Missing children's incident from the first game is the first event in the timeline, and Susie was the first of those children, with William luring her into the back room saying that he found her dog and that he's still alive. Then he kills her and hides the corpse in the Chica suit. William then lures Gabriel, Jeremy, Fritz, and Cassidy, not in that order, to the same room and does the same thing. William then expands his crime by opening up Circus Baby's Pizza World, where his daughter Elizabeth gets grabbed by Baby Day 1 and possesses her, resulting in the restaurant being closed after its first day. Not only that, but the same week, or maybe after, but knowing the series it's probably going to be the same week, Crying Child gets chomped by Fredbear, resulting in him getting put in the hospital on life support, fighting for his life in a coma, when we see the events of FNAF 4 take place, where Crying Child is fighting for his life against nightmare versions of the characters he once loved, and has the plug pulled at the end so his father can put him back together. We then get the events of FNAF 2, where after the reputation-destroying missing children's incident, Freddy's reopens with new animatronics that are meant to scan for predators and criminals. However, they aren't programmed to scan for William because guess what? Yep, he made the goddamn robots to begin with, so that's not gonna happen. Then in that location in 1987, another group of killings occurs, as we see in the Foxy Go 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 minigame, and the Bite of 87 removes someone's frontal lobe, most likely Jeremy, and then the location closes as well. Now at this point, it's worth noting that Foxy Bro is most likely still a teenager at this point, since he's living with his father and hanging out at a kid's pizzeria with his friends. So we need a protagonist for the first 2 and most likely 3 games. The character we play as is most likely Henry, William's co-founder and father to Charlotte, the puppet, who ends up getting killed after all the missing children outside of Fredbear's family diner. This idea comes from Orville Elephant, an Ultimate Custom Knight, who says, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I won't let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us." Which has to be referring to Henry, since he tried to free William in the FNAF 6 Fire, which is the game that's just before this one. Which would then mean he tried to release the other souls in FNAF 3, in the Happiest Day minigame along with the other minigames, and tried to do so in the first 2 games, hence why he gets fired for tampering with the animatronics before he fully understands how fire works. This isn't canon and it's not confirmed, but it would make more sense than these games taking place a decade after, where all like the minigames and stuff, when Michael would be an adult. Then we see the events of FNAF 3, when Springtrap gets released and the security guard releases the original 5 missing children like we see in the Happiest Day minigame. We then move to sister location where we see Springtrap survived and Michael is revealed to be a robot. Sorry, is implanted with Ennard and becomes a robot, and survives after vomiting out Ennard's spaghetti. Michael then goes on to own the FNAF 6 pizzeria and stays when Henry burns it at the end of the game, releasing Elizabeth, Michael, Charlotte, Ennard's multiple souls, and William. However, this is where the new information comes in. Until now, we thought that after this fire, William went to Hell or Purgatory, which is where Ultimate Custom Night takes place. But thanks to the Fazbear Frights book Fetch, which was originally meant to be the final book in the series, and the story in The Man in Room 1280, it shows us what really happened. Firstly, it proves that William did not die in FNAF 3, something that I have said multiple times and that people in the comments were heavily disagreeing with, because I was saying he wasn't an animatronic because he was still a human, he was just being helped by robotic parts, and you know what, I was right. And it shows us how William didn't die in the FNAF 6 fire. How, you ask? Being possessed by the spirit of one of his victims. This spirit was actively keeping him alive in order to keep him suffering in our world. But in the story of The Man in Room 1280, he ends up leaving William's body and possessing the Stitch Wraith along with someone else. So William is able to die. After a nurse brings him to a Fazbear Entertainment warehouse, he explodes and possesses a hard drive which gets scanned before help wanted, thus resulting in Glitch Trap. This story shows us that Ultimate Custom Night doesn't take place in hell like we originally thought, but inside William's mind while he's in the hospital, much like Crying Child, which is poetic in a way, and serves as another way to prove that Crying Child is William's kid. From that point, Tape Girl from Help Wanted breaks William's essence into 16 pieces, which we reassemble while trying to figure out how to get rid of him. Also, you shouldn't have included the whole don't reassemble these tapes on the first one, or on the last one. You should have done it on the first one so that we would know. And you put that tape somewhere specific so that we know we find it, and then you pick it up and it's like, don't collect these tapes. And you're like, okay. Us reassembling these tapes, however, gives William enough power to take over our mind, no matter what we do. The same thing presumably happens with Tape Girl, which is generally assumed to be Vany from Security Breach. But before Security Breach comes the FNAF Augmented Reality game Special Delivery, which adds to the lore using hidden emails that we weren't supposed to see, but we do. And then we read them, because we're kind of scummy. It also adds a whole load of random animatronics that I'm not even going to get into. These reveal that someone known as Nessie is acting weird, googling how to induce compliance in human subjects one minute and then help the next, indicating to us that this Nessie, or Vanessa, is under William's control but is also fighting back. It also tells us that some animatronics are acting weird, perhaps alluding to the animatronics from Special Delivery being under William's control as well, or just the ones from Security Breach. And then after Special Delivery comes Security Breach, and while this game hasn't been released yet, we have an idea of what might happen. We seem to think that William will escape his game in spirit code form and get his consciousness into some robot endoskeleton, resulting in the arm we see at the end of the gameplay trailer. And we know that Glamrock Freddy will be helping us, and might be betraying us at some point, and some think that Chica will help as well. But other than that, there isn't really much that we know about this game, but there are plenty of theories surrounding the series and the new games. So be sure you check out the top 10 scary FNAF security breach theories list if you want to know more. There's also going to be a day and night cycle. I'm pretty sure that was proven. There's like texts with a Steel Wool Studios employee that got leaked or something like that. So yes, it's gonna happen. I called it. It happened. Go check out the videos so you see I did it. Like I said, the game itself actually has two separate stories. The one that was originally intended and the one that it became. Perhaps because the original intent of the game wasn't what it ended up becoming. And Scott has confirmed what we know of FNAF to have been right at a time. So what was the original story of the first 5 Nights at Freddy's game? Well, in a Steam post talking about the games, Scott said, "You know, when I released the first game over a year ago, I was amazed at how quickly everyone found every bit of lore and story. And if we go over the previous theories on Reddit and YouTube, like MadPat's videos, we come up with the following. Before the events of 1987, 5 kids go missing when an employee dressed as an animatronic lures them to a back room and kills them. The killer hides 4 of the kids in the animatronics of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy while moving the 5th to another location or stuffing it into Golden Freddy." Keep in mind that at this point we're only looking at FNAF 1, so the kids don't have names yet. The killer then gets caught and convicted, but the bodies are never found, despite the suits leaking mucus and blood and smelling like rotting bodies. Then in 1987, an animatronic bites someone, removing their frontal lobe, which only causes more bad press for the company. Then a previous night guard known to us as Phone Guy starts recording his messages to train the one who would come after, potentially because he was thinking of switching professions or retiring. However, his retirement comes sooner than he expected when he gets killed by the animatronics while hiding out in a back room. Mike is then hired at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as a night guard to watch over the animatronics, where he spends 7 nights, gets paid, but also fired for smelling and tampering with the animatronics, even though he had been given the memo of Employee of the Month just a couple days before. And that's where the original story ended, full of mystery and general confusion, which only made the series more popular as a whole. But before we get into anything further, let me just say thank you for clicking on this video. If you love the FNAF series as much as we do and want to see more videos like this, plus we have a FNAF lore playlist as well that's more focused on the theories and the confirmed bits of lore. Both of those are linked in the iCard in the top right corner of your screen, so click it. You won't be disappointed. Then comes the next game, and the rest of the series, which expanded on the first game in such a way that made most of what we just said just fanfiction, but like canon fanfiction, you know? Since we know so much more now and the pieces fit together so much nicer, even if you have to bash them in with a hammer. So what is the current story of the first 5 Nights game? Well, we'll go into it based on general theories, but I'll throw in some options in there as we go. Remember, we're looking at the story of the first game here, so details like the FNAF 2 location and Circus babies are irrelevant, but will be explored in future videos if you guys like this one. Before the game starts, William Afton, working as a suit technician dressed as Golden Bonnie, lures 5 kids one at a time to the back room of a Freddy's restaurant and kills them, stuffing the bodies of Gabriel, Susie, Fritz, Jeremy, and Cassidy into the suits of Freddy, Chica, Foxy, Bonnie, and Golden Freddy, where their intense agony from being killed and ruthlessly shoved into animatronics allows them to possess the endoskeletons of their new coffins. William is suspected of a crime and investigated, but no bodies are found, so the charges are dropped, since they have no proof of foul play or any wrong part on his doing. This event, that becomes known as the Missing Children's Incident, ends up costing the company business and bad press. Then the situation gets worse when, in 1987, someone gets bit and loses their frontal lobe, which puts the company in dire straits. Then the player, creator, known as Mike Schmidt, is hired as the security guard and notified via newspaper, the ones that are represented by the ones we see on the walls in game, and not by the company, that the restaurant will be closing at the end of the week. But as we would later learn, since we are the son of the man who committed those murders so long ago, we stay for the week and risk our life to try and set these 5 spirits free. We stay for 5 nights, unable to help, then a couple nights later we're fired for tampering with the animatronics, general unprofessionalism, and odor, most likely to prevent the company from having to pay a bigger severance package when the company goes under. The animatronics are retired and our father continues to get away with the murder. It's also possible that instead of Michael, we play as Henry, William's business partner and at least previously part owner of the restaurants, the father of Charlotte, who is only mentioned in the books, not the games. As a victim of one of these crimes ourselves, we set out on the mission to help those that we could and scare William along the way, using the name of one of his victims, Mike Schmidt, as an alias to be hired as the security guard. He then tries setting the souls free, but is caught, and the issue is brought up to William, who, upon seeing the name, knows that Henry is after him. So he orders that he be fired as quickly as possible and with as many reasons as possible to ensure that Henry can't fight it. Thus the additions of general unprofessionalism and odor, which are honestly not entirely valid reasons. This gives William the idea to dismantle them himself, which he tries to do, hiding in the safe room after each disassembly, but that ultimately fails, having the spirits appear in their child form, causing him to go into the spring-lock suit to feel powerful, but getting spring-locked in the process. Then Henry, as the copyright owner, uses his position to seal off the safe rooms, trapping William inside for the next 30 years. But what happens next? Well, I have to talk about that in another video, won't we? It had 9 spring-lock suits. The original animatronics featured spring-lock suits that had to be hand-cranked to allow them to be worn safely by employees. This was something we already knew based on FNAF 3 minigames, but it's nice to get confirmation anyway. The original animatronic suits were spring-lock suits that could be worn by employees in suit mode or put into robot mode to allow them to perform on stage. This also confirms that the item we see in Purple Guy's hand in FNAF 2 is in fact a spring-lock crank like we've been assuming, although we did at first think that it was a phone. But now we have a better understanding, although this proposes another idea. If that was a spring-lock crank, does that mean that the animatronics Purple Guy was disassembling in those minigames were actually spring-lock suits? Because if that was the case, we would have a whole other reason as to how the missing children died, because that would certainly be more agonizing than like a knife through the chest or something. And it ate yummy pizza. Fazbear's Twisted Pizza recipe was voted most yummy by 6 out of 10 children in every survey from 1988 to 1993. This gives us a bit more insight into the actual locations present within the FNAF universe. The existence of a Twisted Pizza also implies that this is what the Twisted animatronics were named after, and it actually makes some form of sense, at least to my twisted brain. Since if the pizza was voted the most yummy and the animatronics were meant to show you something that you wanted to see, I guess your eyes would also consider those animatronics to be the most yummy. But this could also just be an indication as to the years the Twisted animatronics were operational, since we do get the years of 1988 to 1993, which seems to line up with the events of the books and the games. Since Scott is clever in hiding Easter eggs and explanations, maybe this is what he had in mind when writing this fast fact. And at 7, first location. The first location of the Freddy's franchise was actually Fredbear's Family Diner. This was also something that was merely an assumption until this point, but for a while we considered the Fredbear's Family Diner to be the first location, so at least we get some more timeline confirmations there. It's interesting though that Scott chose to confirm this particular location instead of something else that could have had more significance, which leads me to assume that there might be more to Fredbear's Family Diner than we first imagined, and that there might be more to take a look at here. The diner makes an appearance in FNAF 2 and 3 according to the wiki, although it appears that the Take Cake minigame does happen at the FNAF 2 location thanks to the security puppet minigame from FNAF 6, so maybe we should be taking a closer and more intense look at the FNAF 3 minigames to see if there's anything else we can find. And at 6, the creator. The famous William Afton is the man responsible for the creation of the animatronics we all know and love. This is something that has actually been bugging me for a while, because while the books have William as a creator, we weren't sure if he was the creator or just a technician in the games. So with this line confirming William as a creator, we may be able to go back and fine-tune some of our speculation with this new information. Since he is a creator, he probably would be the only one who knew how to deal with these animatronics, so the possibility of another technician is now lower than it was at first. Him hiding the bodies in the suits suddenly becomes more plausible, as nobody would really understand how to open them, and the FNAF VR parts and service minigames become more telling, because while yes, they could have been made by the studio, The sheer complexity of them seems to indicate that William had a hand in instructing them on where to take the minigame. Perhaps this was truly how William had set up these animatronics to work, so nobody would be able to mess with this hiding spot. Because I mean, like, why would you press both sides of Bonnie's head? Like, why would you pull on Freddy's bow to get his chest to open? It just doesn't make sense. And at 5, first animatronics. Some of the first animatronics built by William Afton featured claw mechanisms that were able to hide away items inside them. This is one of the best fast facts we got, because thanks to this line, we know that William intended on killing even before acquiring Fredbear's Family Diner, since that was the first location. And the only animatronics we see have a claw mechanism are the ones from Sister Location. Baby is the only one we actually see use the claw, but with containment chambers being present, we can assume the other Fun Times have them as well. Which means the Fun Times were made before they opened the first Freddy Fazbear's location. Hence why William was able to open Circus Baby so quickly when he learned that Fazbear's was going to close. Which means if not for Baby's line of being on stage for one day, we wouldn't really know when Sister Location takes place, or at least we would have to question it. And at 4, dangerous. In 1993, the most dangerous profession in the United States was actually night security guard. This seems to just be a funny nod at how many people die in the Fazbear restaurants, because the actual most dangerous profession from 1993 in the US was, at least based on number of deaths per 100k employed, was fishers. But based on just sheer amount of deaths, it was operators, fabricators, and laborers, with nearly 2,000 deaths. So if night security guard was actually the most dangerous job, more than 1,959 security guards would have needed to die in the FNAF universe, which is incredible to say the least. However, if we're going off the number of deaths per 100,000 employed, over 159 security guards would have needed to die, which is a much more reasonable yet still shocking number. This is also not including the fact that the president is technically the deadliest job in the US, since a high number have been assassinated. That's just an even higher percentage, but we don't talk about that. Getting close to the end in number 3, location confirmed. Despite the name, hurricanes are actually not the leading cause of death of children in Hurricane, Utah. This is a more specific confirmation of the location that the game takes place in, since Utah was the state that things had been narrowed down to thanks to the pay stubs we get in the games, but this just places it in Hurricane, Utah. Now, I don't think that there's much else to be learned from this. I don't think that like Scott pulled like a Gravity Falls with a real scavenger hunt that was planned or that was started in Hurricane, but I can't really rule it out, because at this point, we've jumped through hoops more than starving dolphins at SeaWorld to get lore, so a real life issue, or like a real life scavenger hunt like this, would probably be in the cards, at least if Scott hadn't announced his retirement. But I think that since these fast facts were found in the game files and were unused, that means if there was an ARG or scavenger hunt planned, it's no longer in the works. Who knows though, maybe you'll find like a woodland Freddy statue or something out in the woods. At least if it was started. Are there woods in Utah? I don't know. Can we get the king of random on this? Just go out looking. I'll join. Penultimately, in at number 2, Cupcake. Chica's Cupcake features a unique set of servos and its own independent suite of software. This is the fast fact that was the foundation of my explanation as to where a Shadow Chica would have gone. The fact that the Cupcake is its own separate animatronic means that it could be possessed separate to Chica. So if there was ever a reason for Shadow Chica, or if the Shadow animatronics are spirits that somehow got kicked out of their animatronics, Chica's shadow could have just been hiding in the Cupcake. But the Cupcake being their own animatronic is also something we've already known, since in FNAF VR's parts and service minigame, you see the Cupcake jump off its plate and run around before you can catch it and put it back on the plate. The Cupcake also got its own jump scare in FNAF 4, but that could have also just been Chica like holding it up or like throwing it at you, but I doubt it at this point. Finally, in at number 1, I wanna be a rock star. Man, Bonnie's playing Nickelback. Rockstar Bonnie was developed from the original Bonnie for use in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria's franchise operations. This is something that is highly interesting, but not really of big consequence. The fact that Rockstar Bonnie is a development of original Bonnie indicates that maybe the original animatronics weren't melted down in the games. Sure, Candy Cadet speaks of 5 things becoming one thing, but maybe that wasn't referring to the Fun Times at all, since in the books, the Fun Times were created by melting down the endoskeletons of the original 5 animatronics to make remnants Remnant, which is the molten soul metal, but all the metals mixed together into one horrific mess, hence why they had to come together into Ennard. Also, we also got a confirmation that the Fun Times were the first animatronics that William made, so he wouldn't have made the other ones first, therefore they wouldn't be possessed, at least in the game world. So if the Rockstar animatronics are the original animatronics just refurbished, maybe this isn't the case, and the FNAF 3 ending was accurate with the souls being put to rest, which would mean that Golden Freddy is at rest, meaning that the one you should not have killed couldn't be Cassidy. At least that's how it seems to me. But this could also be a misinterpretation, and they just meant that it was designed to be like the original Bonnie instead of using the same parts. It's not specific enough, but it does actually sound like they are meant to be the same parts, or at least the endoskeleton is the same. And again, with the Fun Times being first, that means that like they couldn't be possessed by the original 5. I mean, that's how it's looking at this point, at least until Lumix says that these aren't canon, if they end up saying that they aren't canon.
Number 10. Pizzeria Simulator animatronics come out to play. We've already gotten a look at a terrifying version of Music Man who will appear in Security Breach, referred to here as Giant Music Man. But who else could we potentially see appear from the massive roster of Pizzeria Simulator animatronics? The fact that Music Man appears at all seems to imply that any or all of the rest of the animatronics from that game could show up anywhere or anytime. To be honest, it would kind of make a lot of sense if they did. After all, the Mega Pizzaplex is, well, mega. It's huge. And to keep it as fun as can be, you would need lots of different animatronics to entertain the families who come to visit. Does this mean perhaps even that the Glamrock animatronics may not even be the only performers? Who's to say there aren't smaller stages located around the Pizzaplex where we might get to encounter such amazing bands as the more classic Freddy and Friends and the mediocre Melodies? You know you want to meet Mr. Hippo. You know you want to. Number 9. Toy equals Glamrock? This is a theory that of course came from one of our favorite channels, Game Theorists. Over there, MatPat suggested that the Glamrock animatronics we see in Security Breach may actually be none other than toy animatronics in disguise. He cited similarities between toy Chica with her lost beak and Glamrock Chica with her missing beak in the trailer. If the Glamrock animatronics really are toy animatronics, what would this mean? Possibly that these animatronics actually have a closer connection to William than we thought, which of course would be pretty terrifying. The toy animatronics, I believe, were seemingly used as spare parts and then inevitably ended up scrapped, but what if instead they were really transformed into the Glamrocks? This would mean that there is the potential that their programming was created and tampered with by Afton himself, meaning they could be putting anyone they came into contact with in danger. Unhinged animatronics. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Security Breach lists as we gear up for this game, it is coming soon. Be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Save Vanessa. Instead of Vanessa saving Gregory, what if we as Gregory have to save Vanessa? At the beginning of the newest Security Breach trailer, we hear a voice that sounds like it could belong to Vanessa, potentially, saying I'm trapped. Of course, it could also be Vany's voice, but based on what we think we know of her, I mean, this wouldn't make a lot of sense. Vanessa, however, would make sense as a security guard who perhaps is also struggling with her own identity, as many of us believe that Vanessa and Vany are one and the same, with Vany being Vanessa's darker persona that is taking hold of or controlling her. If this is the case, it could be possible that Vanessa starts out as good, but is taken over by Vany, and then needs to be set free again, as she struggles to fight for control over her own body, and fights to resist the likely influence of William Afton. Number 7. Return of Circus Baby. I have talked about this idea before due to the fact the voice we heard in the first Security Breach gameplay trailer sounded a lot like Heather Masters' intonation to me. I don't know about you, but if you put those two voices side by side, at least for me, it really sounds like Heather, but using just a lower register in her voice. This potential connection to me either means that Circus Baby could somehow be returning through a connection to Vanessa, who I believe is speaking here just based on what she's saying, how it sounds like she wants to help Gregory escape, or that Vanessa will in some way at least end up being a traitor similar to Circus Baby's role in Sister Location. Of course, if this is Heather's voice, there is always the possibility that she is simply voicing a completely new character with no connection to anyone else or anything that has come previously, as voice actors are warned to do. But hey, this is just a theory, a voiceover theory. We don't really know yet, because nothing has been solidified. But for a while, it did say on IMDb that Heather Masters was going to be a voice actor in the game. It's not there anymore, but it was there for a time. Number 6. Vanessa Afon. Who is Vanessa really, and is she connected to the Afon family? This is a question many of us have been asking ourselves ever since we got a glimpse at what she looks like. Vanessa noticeably has green eyes and blonde hair, making her similar in appearance to an Afon family member we've already seen, Elizabeth. Her appearance has caused some fans to theorize that she might then be related to William, either another daughter of his or some other more distant relative. Some even believe she could be some kind of alternate version of Elizabeth or somehow be connected to her, or that she could instead be going in a very different direction and be the fabled Mrs. Afon, the wife of William and mother of his children. Of course, the whole year that this game is supposed to be set in seems to imply that this would be highly unlikely, just based on what we know of the timeline, slash possibly impossible. But just because we think we know when the game is set, just because we've been led to believe that it takes place in modern day, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily right here. So there is still a small chance that Vanessa could be related to or the romantic partner of William Afon, or is in some way connected to the Afon family tree. Number 5. Save Chica. Alternatively, the "I'm trapped" we hear at the beginning of the trailer could be coming from an animatronic. Right after this bit of dialogue is uttered, we see Chica, who seems to appear prominently in the trailer in various stages of disrepair. At the beginning, it almost looks like Chica is struggling to fight against something. Now, I theorize that Chica might be one of the animatronics possessed by William Afon, infected by a virus that is Glitchtrap. In this game, it could be that the animatronics are not inherently bad, but are instead basically victims themselves of Glitchtrap's virus, and that as new animatronics, they were simply created to entertain initially, not having been influenced by William's design since he has been gone for so long, and not influenced by any spirits, as you know, they weren't involved in any of the killings, being new animatronics. Perhaps as Gregory, we will have to rid the animatronics of the virus, which affects most, but obviously not all of them, as Freddy appears to at least be pretty friendly towards us, at least initially. Or at some point, maybe we free him from the virus? Number 4. Vanessa / Vany. Another theory involving Vanessa and Vany is that they are one and the same character. This is a pretty popular theory on the internet and comes from a Funko figure featuring both of them together on the same platform. This figure also shows Vany holding her finger in front of her mouth as though she's trying to silence the onlooker, hinting that she has a secret. Because Vanessa is also present behind her, it seems to suggest that Vany's secret is that she is Vanessa herself. Either that or maybe she's hunting Vanessa, but yeah. The other reasoning as to why people seem to think they are one and the same comes from emails found in Special Delivery. These emails seem to suggest that a worker of Fazbear's, nicknamed Ness, has 2 different personalities residing within her, and that she was transferred to security recently. People think this Ness is actually short for Vanessa from the games, and that the emails are implying that Vanessa suffers from a dissociative identity disorder, where her other personality is actually none other than the villainous Vany. Number 3. Vany kills. To start the game off, I think something must have happened to Gregory's parents to make the game actually make sense. This either means they have become indisposed, left Gregory there on purpose, or more horrifyingly, have become the victim of Vany. It's possible that the promo material we've seen of Vany with a knife, where it says "obey" underneath, is really showing off Vany and her murder weapon, and that the reason Gregory inherently runs from her is because he saw her murder his parents, or kidnap them or something. Now, why did Vany do this? Probably because Glitchtrap made her do it. Why did he influence her to do it though? I mean, this is Glitchtrap, William Afon we're talking about. He could have made this order to get those parents out of the way because he needs Gregory as some sort of sacrifice, or maybe he needed Gregory's parents as sacrifices, or it could just be because, well, he's William Afon and he's a notoriously bad guy who loves killing for, as of yet, some pretty mysterious reasons. Don't really know, so he could just be like, kill them because I'm William Afon. Number 2. Vanessa is mom. So we've already talked about the very rocky yet somewhat popular theory that Vanessa is the mother of William's children, or his lover in some way. But what if she isn't the mother of his kids, but instead is the mother of Gregory? Honestly, she seems like she might be a little young to be the mother of anyone in my opinion, but although we think we know her age based on information gained from emails found in Special Delivery, this doesn't mean that we're right. Instead of Gregory's parents being killed, what if the reason we don't see them searching for him is because they were already there all along? What if Vanessa is Gregory's mom? Maybe he gets to hang out at the Mega Pizzaplex while his mom works, or she had to bring him with her that day because her babysitter canceled or something like that. In that case, it's possible that something went wrong and then the two got separated. Vanessa is trying to find Gregory and help him escape the animatronics, many of which have started to go pretty haywire. Now, why would they suddenly go haywire? Well, I've got a theory for that too. Number 1. Security breach. Something we seem to have moved away from, but that I think is still very important when it comes to theories involving this game, is understanding the title fully. In Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, the name was meant to have a double meaning. It was a game about a sister location of Freddy's, Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, but it was also a place where Michael's sister seemed to be located, or more specifically, trapped. Circus Baby was the prison for Elizabeth's soul, and Michael seemed to have been sent there or drawn there with the intention of freeing his little sister's spirit. So when it comes to security breach, what could this title mean? Well, in one sense it could mean that someone has broken through the physical security of the Mega Pizzaplex, or it could mean, or also mean, that they have broken through digitally. It seems likely that security breach will also have some kind of double meaning, implying that Glitch Trap has broken through the firewall of the Pizzaplex and is taking control of it to wreak havoc on its visitors and staff. It could also refer to the security team themselves being breached in some way, perhaps referring to the fact that Vanessa will be overtaken by her potentially alternate personality Vany, as we've speculated. Or it could even imply that Gregory maybe is the one breaching security. I mean, he isn't supposed to be there, so maybe there's that?